In this video, I'm going to talk to you about photo enhancing, which means taking your picture from just okay and enhancing it to make it look the best that it can. In our last little mini lesson, we talked about photo retouching and removing blemishes and any unwanted features on people, or you could use it for anything really. But we focused on the healing brush tool and the clone stamp tool. Today we are going to focus on a new set of tools, and those tools include the dodge tool, burn tool, and sponge tool. Your dodge tool is probably at the default set. It looks kind of like a lollipop or a magnifying glass. The burn tool looks like a little hand, and the sponge tool looks like a sponge. If you right click on that tool set, it drops down all three and you can choose which one you want to use. We're also going to talk about photo adjustments, which are things like brightness and contrast and adjusting the lighting in your photograph. We're going to talk about color adjustments and possible filters on top of your picture. So in Teams, you can download one of three options. This sunset picture is one option. This is the completed version of it. There is also this photograph, and again, this is the completed version. And there is this photograph, which is completed as well. So I'm going to demonstrate on this picture, but you can choose any that you want for your assignment. We're not going to do a practice and graded assignment. This one's going to turn into your graded assignment. So if you're practicing on it and it doesn't work out or you need to change things, you could just go ahead and reopen the raw copy and start again, and that will be kind of your practice / graded all at one time. So the sunset one is the hardest to enhance and make look good just because of the lighting in it. The girl in the orange jacket or shirt isn't too bad. It's probably the same as this leaf one. So I am going to show you how to work on these. So you're going to download whichever file you want, and you're going to work on the edited layer just as we did in your first assignment. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is photo adjustments. On your photo adjustments panel, there are two different ways you can do this. There are adjustments listed in your panel over here. If you don't see this setup, you can go to Window, Workspace, and Reset Essentials in Photoshop, and it will reset this whole panel over here. You can click on the Adjustments tab and you get all of these photo adjustments. When you adjust from here, it's a little bit different. It works a little bit different than when you adjust from up at the top. So you can also go to the toolbar, click on the Image tab, and find the Adjustments drop-down menu, and you have the same set of adjustments listed here as you have in your panel over here, and they're in the same order too. Brightness and contrast is first. It's also first in the panel. Levels, curves, and exposure. Those four, and those are the ones across the top, all deal with the lighting in your picture or your document. The next set all deal with the color of your document: vibrance, hue and saturation, color balance, black and white, and a photo filter. Those are the four major ones that we're going to focus on now, or that you could focus on now. I'm going to touch on a few of them. And then the last set, this third row down here, and the third set in your drop-down bar will all deal with kind of artistic photo filters that you could possibly add to your picture. So the easiest, most simple one is brightness and contrast. You are probably familiar with that because you can do it in most any platform that you're editing photos on, whether it be on your phone or on Microsoft Word, on a different computer program, on Instagram, or any kind of app like that. They probably have this brightness contrast option. So if I do my adjustments from this drop-down menu, when I choose brightness and contrast, it pops open a toolbox for me to use, and I can use the slider bars to adjust accordingly and make my picture look the way that I want it to look. I don't want to go too much because I don't want it to look fake or overdone, but I do want to brighten this up a little bit You can mess with the contrast too until you feel like it looks better than what it did before. So if you notice, as I'm adjusting from this toolbar, the only thing that is being adjusted is the layer that I have selected here. So if I work from my toolbar at the top, as long as I'm on the layer that I want selected, that's the only thing that I have to think about. If it's easier for you to work from here, that's fine. I honestly usually work from here, but whatever you want to do is fine. If you work from your adjustments panel, what happens is it creates a new layer for that adjustment. So if you don't move your layer order, layers in Photoshop kind of build on top of each other. So whatever layer is on top hides everything that's underneath it. So if I don't move my layer that this created, when I change my brightness and my contrast, or whatever feature I'm trying to change, whatever adjustment that I'm trying to make, it will adjust both layers for me. Now, if I come down to my layers panel and I move my original layer to the very top of my document, it will unedit everything that's on here, because you can see my brightness layer is underneath my original layer, so you can't see it on that. If that's a little bit much for you right now, since we haven't really gotten into layers, just work from the toolbar at the top. The plus of using a layer is that you can hide and reveal layers as you choose. This little eyeball in front of your layer will turn off whatever layer is there, or will hide whatever layer is there. So you can kind of turn off and on adjustments as you use them. You can also click back on the layer and you can adjust your levels from there. If you noticed here, it's what's called a layer mask. Again, that's a little bit more advanced than what I'm going to go into right now. But as long as you click on just the wording, it will bring that brightness contrast panel back up for you. Another option for your lighting in your picture is something called the levels panel. This one is awesome because you have a ton of control over what you're doing. So this, you have 3 slider bars. The dark one controls or adjusts your dark areas, your shadows in your photograph. The middle one adjusts the midtones in your photograph. And this bright bar, the one on the right hand side, adjusts your highlights. So you can have total control over how much or how little you're adjusting each of those areas to get the lightness that you want in your photograph. So you can use just your basic brightness contrast panel, you can use this levels panel, or you can use a curves panel, and that's kind of does the same thing that the levels does, but it's on this slider bar and you can choose different points to move around with. This you get into a little bit more of an advanced editing, so I'm not going to cover that a whole lot. You can play with it if you want. I used to use it a lot, but I actually prefer levels to this. So I'm just going to delete out that layer because I don't want to use it. You could also work with the exposure. That deals with actually when you're taking the photograph, how much light goes into your lens, but it kind of, you can use that to change your lighting too. This is obviously not the way you would want your picture to look. I'm just showing you some of the different effects that you can get as you use these different tools. Now we're starting into the color thing with the vibrance. I'm not going to talk to you a whole lot about vibrance. Trying to decide which one I like better here. I'll leave the levels one on. You can use whatever you want to adjust your lighting. Now, hue and saturation is the easiest way to do color. For this, saturation just means how much color is in your photograph. Obviously, you don't want it to look like that unless you're going for some artistic effect. If you drop it the whole way down, you can turn your picture black and white from this panel. You can adjust the hue, which will give it different hues or different kind of color variations. You can set that to 0. You can change your lightness. You can do different filters from here. You can also change your color channels. So if I want to kind of enhance or saturate the reds in this picture a little bit more, I just drop down my red color menu. If I want to take out some of the yellows in the picture, I can choose yellow and I can desaturate from there. So you can have a little bit more of an advanced control over the color that you want to do. You can click on color balance and kind of the same thing. You can mess with this a little bit. You can do your midtones, shadows, or highlights in this selection. You can, oh, I just accidentally deleted that layer, so I'm going to come up to my history panel. I don't want to delete my levels layer, so I undid that move and I'll just move on from there. You can turn your photo black and white. So if you want a black and white picture, this will give you more control over what your actual black and white looks like. You can adjust. You can see here a lot with the yellows how much difference it makes whenever you're adjusting these. So a lot more control if you want a black and white picture. And lastly, the last one I'm going to cover, this invert is just kind of flips your black and your whites. You don't want to use that. I'm going to delete the black and white layer for now. Posterize will give you more of a pop art effect or a poster effect on your picture. Again, I'm not really looking for these artistic filters, but I do want to show you I want to show you a photo filter. There it is. Okay, it's on this camera. So the photo filters are awesome. This one happens to be a warming filter. You can have a lot more control over that. You can do the density of it. So the warming filter just puts kind of a warmer color tone over it. There are also cooling filters that puts more of a blue cool tone over top of your picture. Sepia, underwater is kind of another one of my favorite ones because it's a cool one, but it's not so exaggerated. Sepia is kind of an antique-y type of filter, but I feel like it works really well for this picture. So you can put a photo filter over them, or you don't have to if you don't want to. So I'm basically looking for lighting and color adjustments in your edited copy for your photo enhancing. So you can mess with these tools and choose the one that works best for the picture you want and for the effects that you want. The next couple of tools that I'm going to talk to you about are the dodge, burn, and sponge tools. So the dodge tool will lighten up areas if you paint over them. I can use my bracket keys to increase my brush size. At the top, this part is really awesome and important too. You can choose what range you're going to do. So if I'm going to lighten or brighten something, I want to enhance my highlights a little bit. So I am going to use, I'm going to drop down the highlight tool, and nothing's happening because I'm not on the correct layer. So I'm going to click into my edited layer, and I can come in here and I can adjust my highlights by dodging them out or by coloring them out. Now, this isn't exactly what I want it to look like because it's too bright. So I'm going to undo those first few dodge tool moves, and I am going to take my exposure and bump it way, way down because I want this to look natural. I just want the picture to be enhanced. I don't necessarily want to make it unrealistic looking. So I'm just going to dodge over some of my highlights, which will brighten them up, but not take them super duper unrealistic. So the dodge tool lightens areas up. If you want to brighten or lighten anything, dodge tool is what you want to go for. Burn tool does the opposite. It darkens areas up. I like to work with the shadow range on this one so that I can, it kind of bumps up your contrast a little bit without changing the effect of the picture. So if I want these leaves to sit more in the background, that was a little bit too much from what I wanted, so I'm going to bump my exposure down. If I want these leaves to sit in the background a little bit more, or take them away from my face, or even add a vignette or a dark shadow around a picture, I can use my burn tool to get that effect. I can even come into my midtones if I want and darken some of that area up a little bit. So the burn tool is easy to remember because it darkens everything up. And the sponge tool deals with your saturation. So you can choose a desaturate or a saturate mode. Saturate does just that. It saturates color back into your picture, so it adds color. Again, you can change the flow and make it more exaggerated or less exaggerated. That got switched to desaturate, which you can see is taking away all of the color in my picture. You can pick and choose areas that you want to do for this one. So maybe I want to only leave my eyes colored. I could desaturate, I can do it quickly by bumping up the flow. I can desaturate everything in this picture but her eyes, or I could leave her eyes and the leaf colored in. I can blow it up and get really close to her eyes and desaturate from there. You do not have to saturate or desaturate any of these images. I do want to see evidence of at least the dodge and the burn tools though. If you want to mess with the saturation in it and play around with that some, by all means go for it, but you will not be graded on that for this assignment. What I also want you to do though is go back to those healing brush and clone stamp tools that we learned in the first assignment. I'm also going to be looking for evidence of photo retouching on top of the enhancing. So what that means is I want you to take away blemishes, dark circles under the eyes. You can use your healing brush for that, or if you're just getting bigger dark circles, move back to your clone stamp tool that we worked with so much with that tattoo removal, clone some nice pretty bright skin up there, and then come back through in little sections like we talked about already and try to get some of these dark circles out from under her eyes. If you blow it up nice and big, sometimes that helps to make these a little bit more smooth for you. Again, you can see there that didn't work out the way I wanted it to, so I'll come back with my clone stamp tool and I will clone some bright skin over top of those circles, and then I'll go ahead and blend that out so that it looks a little bit more natural. You have to watch so that you don't get too close. I'm not going to take forever on that, but I will be looking for you to do a little bit with your photo retouching tools as well as the photo enhancing tools. So just to recap, you can go up to image adjustments. You can do it from here and it will adjust whatever layer you have selected. You can work from the adjustments panel on the right hand side of your screen, which will create new layers for each adjustment that you make. I also want you to focus on at least the dodge and burn tools. You can use the sponge tool if you want, and then go back to your clone stamp and healing brush tools to do a little bit of retouching on your picture as well.